Sponsored by Telomobile. The Google phone has been a long time coming. Almost 15 years ago, the first rumors of the G phone were starting to swirl before the T-Mobile G1 emerged in 2008, and then a year later the Nexus program began, bringing a range of even googlier Google phones. Then the original 2016 Pixel was plugged as the first true phone by Google. And even with that storied history, I'm here to tell you that the latest Google Pixel 6 devices, and the larger Pixel 6 Pro in particular, feel like the first honest-to-goodness Google flagships. I'm Alex from Android Central, and I've been using these two phones side by side for almost 2 months now. Take a sec to subscribe so you don't miss future videos like this one, and we'll get stuck into our long-term review of the Google Pixel 6 and 6 Pro. The unique googliness of these devices starts on the outside, with the new Pixel design identity and camera bar. Google thankfully has moved on from the previous generation of Pixel design language, which basically saw the company produce a slightly more boring looking version of the iPhone. This is a far bolder design choice than what we've seen from any previous Pixel, and the Pixel's visual identity is now tied directly to those excellent rear cameras. Like many other handsets with large camera bulges though, the back of the Pixel 6 is a bit of a lint trap. It's especially noticeable in the black colour that I've been using here. The smaller Pixel 6 features a rounded matte aluminium frame that offers a little bit more surface to hold onto, though with a slipperier texture than the glossy coated metal on the Pro. Personally, I haven't found either phone to be unusually hard to hold onto, though I had come fresh from a few months of using the Galaxy S21 Ultra, which is already a pretty hefty phone. The standard Pixel 6 also feels more angular, chunky, and generally just more substantial than you might think from looking at it. While it is easier to one hand than its big brother, this definitely is not a small phone. Around front, you'll also notice thicker screen borders on the small Pixel 6 compared to the Pro. I haven't found this to be particularly bothersome, although it is a shame Google couldn't retain the symmetrical borders of the Pixel 5. Like most Android smartphones, the 6 has a small chin area of thicker bezel at the bottom of its front face. Both devices have excellent displays for their price points though. The Pixel 6 Pro's 120Hz Quad HD Plus panel doesn't quite match the peak brightness of the S21 Ultra, which admittedly is quite a bit pricier. It is however comparable with many of the best flagship Android displays out there like the OnePlus 9 Pro. The regular Pixel 6 steps down in resolution and refresh rate, but the compromises in both areas aren't all that noticeable, even with both phones side by side. The more obvious difference is the color tuning. The Pixel 6 Pro I'm using appears to be tuned slightly warmer than my Pixel 6, as well as that clear distinction in screen border size and the fact that the Pro's display is curved around the edges. Fitted inside both displays is the same optical in-screen fingerprint scanner. My luck with this sensor hasn't been as bad as some other reviewers, but it certainly is perceptibly slower than rival sensors from the likes of Samsung, even with the latest updates. In terms of reliability and read errors, I haven't found it any worse than any of its contemporaries, but slower unlocks are definitely more common with this phone. Elsewhere, tap and vibration feedback in both phones has been as good or better than any Android device I've used. Key presses and app changes are accompanied by pleasingly firm taps, and that even includes haptic feedback that's timed to coincide with the beats of your ringtone. If there is a difference in audio reproduction between these two phones, I certainly haven't noticed it. Both the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro combine a slimline earpiece tweeter with the bottom-firing loudspeaker for playback. Whether I was on a voice call or listening to YouTube videos, I always found playback to be clear with ample volume. For content like TV shows and music videos though, both phones' bass reproduction was somewhat weaker compared to Samsung's latest flagship, but the difference there was barely noticeable. As we've touched on in our Android 12 review, Google's Pixel UI has undergone a total visual overhaul with this latest version of the OS, and that's especially evident on the Pixel 6, the first device to launch with that software. Material U, Android's new design language, is built around rounded corners, larger typography, dynamic color scheme that adapts to your home screen wallpaper. The whole UI is a delight to use, helped along by the speedy Google Tensor chip under the hood. Android 12 on the Pixel 6 comes with a few unique perks compared to earlier Pixels. The Magic Eraser tool is an excellent simple way to remove distractions and photo bombers from your shots. It's similar to the Spot Heal tool in Snapseed or Context-Aware Deletion in Photoshop, and like both of those features, it works best with predictable background patterns. You'll soon start to discover the limits of this feature if you attempt to delete larger objects or anything directly connecting to your subject. Live translation is another Pixel 6 feature that's a little rough around the edges. The new interpreter mode, activated through Google Assistant, is fast and generally accurate. Thanks to that Google Tensor chip, there's no need to refer back to the cloud for translations. However, like the regular Google Translate app, I was able to trip up Live Translate because it seems to ignore essential bits of context in certain languages. For basic translation though, it does a pretty fantastic job. And Live Translate also supports in-app translation for messaging apps via a pop-up that appears at the top of the screen, as well as translations through live captions in any app that produces audio. For the most part, this works well and is a lot more convenient than copy-pasting into Google Translate. But if you want to use the feature occasionally or just for certain chats, that's not an option. It's all or nothing for each of the supported languages. Google's take on Android remains the most visually pleasing and one of the quickest skins available, with plenty of delightful animations and haptic flourishes present throughout the Pixel's UI. But much like Android 12 on other devices, there were a fair few bugs in the initial Pixel 6 firmware. The most egregious one I ran into, which actually required a factory reset to fix, resulted in my Pixel 6 Pro locking to a lower 60Hz refresh rate around 50% of the time. No idea what was causing that, but at least it hasn't recurred since the reset. Occasionally Material U's dynamic color scheme would also kind of fall over and reskin all my widgets to the standard Google Blue. There's also an easily reproducible bug that causes YouTube to crash in the background sometimes, which also seems to affect other Android 12 phones. None of these are deal-breakingly horrible, with the possible exception of that refresh rate bug. Overall though, that initial firmware just felt a little unpolished and like it needed a little bit longer in the oven before being pushed out. Google is indeed pushing out bug fixes though, including a monster patch that just landed as this video is going live. One area where both Pixel 6 phones have been absolutely rock solid though is the battery life. Now you'd expect reliable longevity considering the battery capacity on offer here, 4600 mAh and change for the smaller 6, and just over 5000 mAh for the Pro, but I've been really pleased to see those numbers translate into easy all-day battery life, even with heavy camera and 5G use. With my typical usage spread mostly across Wi-Fi and LTE, the Pixel 6 Pro had me regularly ending the day with 40% or more in the tank. When I really pushed the phone, including heavy photo and video duties, I'd manage around 6 hours of screen on time, which is toward the upper end of what I've gotten out of contemporary Android flagships. Anecdotally though, on the smaller Pixel 6 I've noticed slightly better longevity than the Pro with extended periods of screen activity. As for charging, these phones are very much run-of-the-mill with USB PD or fast wireless charging via the new Pixel stand. Charging really is nothing to write home about, and obviously nowhere near as quick as some of the super fast charging standards from competitors like OnePlus, but considering the great battery life I've gotten out of these phones, I'm not really too concerned. Everyone knows smartphones can be expensive, but here's the thing nobody tells you. You can afford the latest phone if you're smart enough to save on your phone bill. With Tello Mobile, you never pay for more than what you use, and what you use is totally up to you. With Tello, you're in complete control, so you get to build your own plan and add minutes and data as you like. All Tello plans above $10 a month benefit from a 50% discount valid for the first month of service. Plus, all phones on Tello.com are on sale until December 31st, 2021. Tello works on 4G LTE and 5G nationwide in the US, plus every plan includes hotspot and comes with free international calls to more than 60 countries. Basically what Tello's saying is anything your carrier can do, we can do better and a lot cheaper. That means no contract, great website, pay-as-you-go payment, and real human customer service. And when you find the smartphone of your dreams, you can bring it to Tello while keeping your number. Get more for less with Tello Mobile, and use those extra savings to finally get your hands on the phone you really want. As great as the software experience is, the Pixel 6 killer app has to be the camera. And the much needed optical upgrade puts the Pixel 6 Pro in particular on even footing with the best shooters out there from Samsung and Apple. And in addition to the upgraded hardware, the Google Tensor's new image signal processor provides more horsepower for turning that sensor data into pleasing photos. Shots from the Pixel's main 50-megapixel camera have that typical Pixel look, tons of dynamic range, a little soft in places, but generally accurate colors amped up with a slight burst of saturation. And the new larger sensor means portraits, even shot outside of the dedicated portrait mode, have a pleasing level of natural bokeh. And while night-sat captures do require some pixel peeping to distinguish from Pixel 5 photos, the differences are there, especially around the edges of the frame. Extra detail and reduced noise can be seen here from the Pixel 6. The ultrawide is weaker than some larger sensors like OnePlus's 50-megapixel unit used in the OnePlus 9 Pro, but it's still a welcome addition and a sizable upgrade over the Pixel 5. That especially applies to video, where ultrawide shots from the wider lens feature stabilization and image quality that are comparable to the main camera in all but very dark conditions. In fact, the most significant improvement in these Pixel phones might be video. That's one area where Google's hardware deficit really showed in years past, so it's great to be able to have the same HDR plus image quality and dynamic range translated into moving pictures on the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro. This optical and computational upgrade means features introduced last year in the Pixel 5, like the various video stabilization modes, work even better with this new camera hardware. Getting reacquainted with these Pixel video features on this upgraded hardware over the past couple of months has been a lot of fun. The main value add for the Pixel 6 Pro is of course that 4x optical periscope telephoto camera, letting you get closer than ever before on a Pixel camera. The 4x zoom level is perfect for pulling subjects closer to you without losing detail, and is good for software zoom up to about 20 times thanks to its 48 megapixel resolution and Google's Super Res zoom technology. And the telephoto also works really well in night sight mode in all but extreme low light. It's surprisingly competent in video mode too thanks to Google's tensor-based stabilization. Even when panning around after fast-moving subjects like squirrels in a park, the motion here was a lot smoother than I was expecting. Photo-wise, the 4x zoom camera holds its own against Samsung's Galaxy S21 Ultra up to around 10 times, though at 20 times Samsung has a noticeable advantage. That means for capturing distant buildings or vistas you'll get better results from the Samsung camera, but for everything besides those extreme fringe situations, Google's telephoto is highly competitive. You'll also enjoy slightly improved selfie performance out of the 6 Pro's front-facer, with a larger sensor that defaults to a tighter crop and that lets you zoom out to a wider field of view. Selfie portrait mode can be a bit hit and miss with edge detection on details like hair, but general performance is great, and the larger sensor plus night sight mode can help you capture some of the best low-light selfies in any phone. Elsewhere, there are a few new photo gimmicks to play with, like motion effects. Both long exposure and action pan are pretty impressive in the right situation, but these are highly situational features that you'll need to remember to use at the right time. In the right situation though, I found the long exposure mode to be a lot of fun to use, especially with fireworks and other kinds of light shows. It's been a long, winding journey from the first Google co-branded phones more than a decade ago, to the first really good Google flagship in 2021, and the Pixel 6 makes the strongest case yet for a Google phone. It's a much needed soft reset of the Pixel brand, which has floundered in recent years, and the combination of bold designs, fresh new software, best-in-class cameras, and highly competitive prices means these Pixels should really turn heads over the next 12 months. The choice between Pixel 6 and 6 Pro largely comes down to price versus photographic capabilities. How much value do you place on that 4x optical telephoto? For me personally, having used a bunch of periscope telephoto cameras since their earliest days, I know I'd miss this feature if it wasn't there. If you're more price conscious though, or just don't take that many zoom photos, the Pixel 6 is an excellent buy in the mid to high-end price segment. Whichever of these phones you pick up though, you can buy with confidence knowing you're getting one of the best Android handsets of the moment, and unlike some rivals, a phone with a long lifespan ahead of it. That's it for now. Be sure to hit the comments to let us know what you think of the Pixel 6 and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.